Farah Pahlavi's book is called An Enduring Love. In 1959, when she was 21, she married the former Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. During her 20-year reign as Empress, she worked to boost women's rights, eradicate illiteracy, and establish a forum for the arts. In 1979, she and her husband were forced to flee their country after the rise of a new Islamic republic led by the Ayatollah Khomeini. Her new book, as I said, is called An Enduring Love, and it talks about her life with the Shah, and I am pleased to have her here to talk about that. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell me when you first met him.
Well, the first time I met him from close was in Paris when I was a student of architecture, and I was very proud, of course, to have been introduced to him. But really, it was our real encounter was in Tehran when I returned for summer vacation in '59.
And you were how old?
I was exactly 20 years old then.
And how did you see him then?
I was invited to see his daughter from the previous marriage, and I was delighted to meet her, and then the king arrived. And I said, well, it's an accident, it's normal, then the father comes and visits her daughter. And then he really put me at ease and started to ask me questions about my student life and the students abroad. And that's how it all started.
And then how long was it before
it was
you knew this was serious?
August that we met, and close to October I realized that it was not an accident, because we met several times afterwards.
Yeah.
And we spoke, and he took me around, that something serious is happening.
What kind of man did you marry?
I had always an admiration for him as a king and as a patriot. He was really someone who loved his country and its people, and humanly he was such a civilized man, so human, so just, so affectionate, and a loving husband and a loving father.
In 1967, you were crowned queen. Now, how long had you been married to the Shah before you were crowned queen?
We married in 1959.
So 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why did it take 8 years to crown you queen?
Because it was his own coronation also. He always said, I don't want to be crowned before my people are going through development and their condition of living is better. And then again, the crowning the queen, for me, as I always said, when he crowned me, as if he had crowned all the women of Iran.
You represented all the women of Iran, you think?
Yes, yes, and I think many Iranian women felt the same way. Of course, in our past history, thousands of years ago, we had women as reigning queens, but it didn't happen all these years.
Was it the happiest time of your life after when you were before the revolution, when you were in Iran, when he was in power, and all Jimmy Carter and all the other presidents would come, and all those Americans who had a relationship with Iran would come to Iran and celebrate it, and you had the power of oil and all of that?
You know, beside my own happiness, my personal happiness as a wife, as a mother, and as a person who was active in so many activities, it was the happiness of a country going forward to development, to modernity, to progress, to compare the condition of Iran and the Iranians 25 years ago. And unfortunately, these people came and promised paradise, and they opened the door to hell. And to me, what has happened in Iran is really a catastrophe with mythological dimension.
Mythological damage?
Mythological dimension.
What's the mythological damage?
Because it's so huge, it's so horrible, that I cannot comprehend or accept that a country like Iran, which was one of the cradles of civilization, we had such good relations with the rest of the world, the area was stable, we had peace, the country was developing, modernizing, going towards progress, and now it has become the center of international terrorism and religious fanaticism.
So how do you explain the fact that the Islamic Revolution was successful?
It has many...
When your husband had all the army that he had.
Well, it has different causes, interior and exteriors. Of course, there were shortcomings of mistakes committed, but we could have or should have handled or addressed the problems better.
Which problems?
Well, of different dissatisfaction of people for different things. Like, for instance, when you put one foot forward, there are also difficulties which arise, but you have to address them.
And you think he failed to address them perhaps because for whatever reason, and that therefore it sowed the seeds for the revolution?
Well, you know, let us not forget the context of that period. It was during the Cold War.
Right.
Our big neighbor, the Soviet Union, always dreamt to reach the warm waters of the Persian Gulf. We had all the communist groups inside of Iran, and we were victim of international terrorism because three prime ministers were assassinated, twice attempted the life of my husband, and some American citizens, officers were killed in Iran. So there were these groups who were very attached to ideology of communism, and also the other side, the fundamentalists, that they have shown what they wanted for Iran, and they were unhappy for development progress and women's rights. So all that gave together, and also, unfortunately, all the pressure from outside that encouraged the opposition and, in a way, discouraged the government. But again, what I want to say, with your permission, is this is the past. We have to look.
I'm going to move toward it, but
yes.
there is too much history here for me not to talk to you about it, because you were part of that history.
Yes.
I promise to get to the future. And the book, because the book is about a love story, as you say, an enduring love. My life with the Shah, and we're talking about your life with the Shah, as you know. And we'll talk about your son in a moment. But let me just say, when did you know it was over, that you were going to have to flee the country? Did you know a week before, 2 weeks before? Did you all have an inevitability about it?
Yes, I will answer to this question. But enduring love means at the same time love of my husband and love of my country, Iran. You know, almost 10 days, a week before we left, we were discussing that maybe we have to leave, maybe it will calm down the situation, this mass hysteria, just a week before.
How difficult and how disappointed and frustrated and angry was he about the fact that he had a hard time finding a place to live out the rest of his life? And it only was the intervention of people like David Rockefeller and others that it happened.
Well, you know, all this time, I always say, since he was a very good pilot, he was really looking at the world from another level. I think the pilots see the world differently. He never complained. And
even when he was suffering from cancer? And...
No, because we, although humanly it was very hard to understand, but in politics, governments are for their political interest and economical interest. And the regime had changed. But at the same time now, I think of President Sadat, to whom, and to the Egyptian, which I will always remain grateful.
Because they allowed him to come to Egypt, and
he showed also that even in politics, moral values count.
Sadat did.
Yes.
His body is still in Egypt, is that correct?
It's still in Egypt.
The tomb is in Egypt.
In Egypt.
Yeah. Well, do you visit Egypt?
Every year I go to Egypt to visit his tomb for the commemoration, and I have it's a pleasure for me always to go back to Egypt, and always with the hope that one day we could take him back to our own country.
You would like to take him back to Tehran?
Yes.
Do you think that will ever happen?
I think it will. I have confidence in the future of Iran. Iran is important, not only for the Iranians today, but for the peace and stability in the Middle East and for the rest of the free world. And I have confidence in Iranian women, in the youth of Iran. And also they have shown lately, after the so-called elections, that they are rejecting the system.
There's a very strong reform movement in Iran. It doesn't necessarily mean they want to invite the Shah or representatives of the Shah's son back. I mean, I see no evidence that there's a strong movement to restore a monarchy in Iran. Do you?
What is important for me and for my son is that he has fought for the last 24 years with many Iranians of different political opinion for freedom and democracy in Iran and the separation of religion from state,
right,
and with Iran keeping its territorial integrity. What he says is one day, if hopefully Iranians are free by a referendum, it's up to them to choose whether they want a constitutional monarchy or any sort of democratic government they choose. And he's ready to serve in any way the Iranian people want him to serve.
But here's the interesting thing. 70% of Iranians are under 30. They don't know the Shah, they know nothing about the Shah, and they know nothing about the Ayatollah Khomeini.
I wanted to tell you
their
that
history is not about either of them.
the history is about the future of Iran and the freedom in Iran, but at the same time, they know, they learn, they hear of what was Iran, the position of Iran and the Iranians in those days. And I wanted to tell you that I received many emails, I still receive, from Iranian young people, and especially my son. They were all born after the revolution, or they were very young, and they are very affectionate letters. And they sometimes ask me to call them, which I do.
You call them?
I call them.
You get a letter and they say, please call me, and you call them?
Yes, I call them, and sometimes I give them a code name because I don't want to create problem for them if I mention my name. But sometimes they do mention my title or my name. I say, please don't. They say, we don't care. And then, you know, they give me courage as I can give them courage. And they say, for instance, well, my parents were very much in favor of the Shah and the system, and since I was brainwashed in school, I thought that they are counter-revolutionary and not good Muslim. Now I realize. Or a young boy of 22 somewhere in Iran, I said, how's the city, how the city looks? He said, gray since you have left. And so it shows that, you know, the seeds that you have planted with love, they don't disappear, in spite of all which has been said and they are saying today.
You know what the people who formed the Islamic Revolution in Iran and took power, they say that you and the Shah took billions of dollars out of the country.
Well, I wanted you to know, and everybody else, that the Shah was an honest man. He cared only for his country and his people, and my conscience is clear. And I'm really...
He didn't take billions of dollars out, you're saying? He didn't have access to billions of dollars
even
that
if he
belonged
had,
to the people of Iran?
Even if he had, he was not there for the interest, material interest. He didn't have interest in material thing. And then it's a pity in a way to repeat the allegation of a terrorist, repressive regime, and today think about their corruption and what's happening in Iran today.
What is it that concerns you most about what is happening in Iran today?
It's the condition of women. So many young girls, unfortunately, because of poverty, they have to go to prostitution. So many young people addicted, and also so many young children begging in the streets, which never happened in Iran. And also these people are really selling the country, and also the respect of the Iranians outside of Iran, and also the development, the progress, the possibilities. Iran is a rich country, and it has
rich in culture, rich in human resources, and rich in natural resources.
Natural resources, but it has to be used well, and the the job should be given to those who know how to.
Would you you'd be happy to see a reform in Iran as advocated by the so-called reformist movement to create a secular democracy?
The Iranian people, the majority of them are beyond reformers. They had so many years, the so-called reformers or so-called moderates, I think it was mostly for the outside world to just keep on continuing the system. Iranian people don't want reform anymore. They want a change.
Change of what?
Change of the regime in Iran. They want freedom, democracy, and a secular democracy.
How did you survive all this yourself? I mean, your daughter, your husband, from where you were to have to go through what you went through. I mean, what is it about you?
I always say that life is a struggle for everybody relative to its own position. We might lose our position, our belongings, our house, our country, our loved ones, but we shouldn't lose our dignity, we shouldn't lose ourselves. And I have used all the means that could keep me going on, and especially my fight against the negative things of life and the evil, which I consider this regime. I want to survive this regime and also in my own life. And
you live for one thing, to see the regime overthrown?
I just want, I say, I always hope that light would overcome the darkness. And I used all the things that life gave me, which I'm grateful for, whether the affection and friendship of so many people I have met around my trips around the world, the letters they wrote to me. I did a lot of sport because I believe in that. It helped me. I read all the books about how to feel better. I listened to all the cassettes. Music helped me. Literature helped me. I use everything. The sky, the sunshine, the birds, the flowers, and I say thank you, and it gives me energy.
Yeah.
And I will go on, I hope.
What do you hope people will come away with having read this book with? What would you like for them to walk away from, having met and experienced your book?
Well, frankly, I will leave it up to the readers to decide what they get out of my book. I have written my life the way I have lived it in a period of Iran's life. And
what regrets did the Shah have?
He had said also in his books that with hindsight, maybe the political participation that he wanted to bring about after Iran makes some progress on development, and also to solve the problem of illiteracy and slowly open up to more political participation. Maybe now with hindsight, if it had been done earlier in the early 70s, maybe this would not happen, because frankly the problems were not at a level that could not be solved. And with discussions, of course, what we see happening under the Islamic Republic, there was no way we could go the same way together. But then again, in our countries, we cannot become democracies overnight. It took decades for other countries to become real democracies.
Was it hard to write the book? Because it brought back memories, you had to go through things that were painful.
It wasn't easy, although I considered it my duty to do that. But of course the beginning was agreeable, because it was going back to the memories of my childhood, my youth, my life in Iran. The difficult part was the revolution and then the exile.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time.